Hello everybody, how's it going? Carl Withy here, joined today by Tristan Welland. How are you going, Tristan?
Yeah, good, thanks, Carl. It's going to be a great night, mate.
Yes, I'm very good, thank you. And we are here for the Performance E Streaming ANZCAR All-Star Race. A little bit different to our normal races that we have, like Thursday Night Thunder, the 131 Web Radio Trucks, and of course the K&N series. We're going to have a few different faces tonight as well. So, Tristan, how do you think it's going to go tonight?
Oh, look, yeah, it's going to be one of those tight races, mate. It could go either way for quite a few different drivers. It's a pretty star-studded field, if you want my real opinion. Yeah, definitely.
It is, absolutely. Well, actually, what I'm going to do now is actually read through all the entrants that we have for the All-Star race. These are people that have basically performed really well this season in either the K&N trucks or the Thursday Night Thunder. Won races, championship winners, and people that have sort of placed in the championship. So we'll start off with Scott Butler, Mike Brown, Matt Danson, Shane van Gisbergen, the current V8 Supercar Series champion, so not one of our champions, but another Series champion, Ashley Lear, Mitchell McLeod, Hayden Dodman, a guy that we can never count out, Braden Boulos, who only won one race in Thunder, but absolutely did a fantastic drive, Kevin Bombford, Michael Scurlock, of course, the K&N and truck champion, Chris Purnell, Jason Martin, the Thursday Night Thunder champion, Bruce Smith, Darren McKenzie, Stephen Clarke, Joshua Caroll-Walden, Daniel Grzeszkiewicz, or Danny G as we like to call him, usually in the commentary booth for the for the 131 Web Radio Trucks, of course, Jackson Callow, Riley Curtis, Matthew Kloet, Josh Michelmore, Rodney Morris, James Robbie, Jake Moloney, Thomas Hinss, Edward Foster, of course, finished second in the Thursday Night Thunder Championship. We had a fantastic season ending there. Dave Douglas, a guy that we really can't count out. He can sometimes pull it out of the bag. Daniel Stevens, Stephen Williams, Ben Doughty, Ricky Cornwall, another great little driver. Had some great racing between Ricky Cornwall, Ben Doughty and the trucks this season. And our heat winners, they were racing last night, of course. Bryan Richmond won the first heat and he's entered in, and Aaron Wilton won the second heat and has entered himself in. So as you said, Tristo, a star-studded field there.
Yes, no, definitely. It really is anyone's race. Going to be a very interesting night.
It is, yeah. I'm really looking forward to this race. So tonight I'm actually going to be doing the camera work as well as the commentary, so do forgive me if I do pause a little bit more than normal or start getting a few things wrong, but we're going to follow Jake Moloney out actually onto track. Jake's coming out currently for the qualifying, so in this session they're going to be qualifying for their starting positions. Now Tristo, who do you think is going to be up the top of the field?
Look, Edward Foster, he's always going to be up there at the top. Jason Martin.
Jason is somebody you can never count out. He is always so quick in qualifying. His single lap pace is just something that always takes my breath away.
Yeah, no, he's consistent. He knows the line he needs to nail when he leaves the pits, gets up to speed perfectly. Yeah, one of those guys, you know.
That's it. So we'll look at Michael Scurlock, actually. I think that's quite a good chat to look at, the K&N and Truck Season Championship winner. So Michael Scurlock is another guy that's usually relatively high up in the field. Bryan Richmond's actually currently fastest with Jake Moloney second and Ashley Lear third, but this is all going to change. We're going to have a very choppy, changey session tonight in qualifying.
And Mitchell McLeod has gone to the top there with a 28.9 car.
What a lap. An absolutely fantastic lap. Aaron Wilton just as we talk, Ricky Cornwall just beats him out. 0.15 seconds faster than McLeod. Darren Stevens gets second place. This is an absolutely wild qualifying session. It's hard to actually follow anybody and just work out who to follow in this session.
Well, the times have definitely dropped since practice. So they're nailing their qualifying laps. They know how important these laps are.
They do, and as we speak, Edward Foster has just taken the first place with Jason Martin behind him, and that's actually a bit of a shocker, in all honesty. You know, Edward Foster is a very fast driver, but Jason Martin just getting in second place. Usually, we expect to see him way up there in the field.
Actually, yes, Edward's time was quicker in qualifying than it was in practice, and vice versa. Jason's was actually slower in qualifying. He did a faster lap in practice. So it comes down to getting that lap when you need it, I guess. That's
it. It's a very important thing. You know, people forget just with oval racing, there is so little time in it. It's very easy to lose a couple of tenths just by spinning your wheels slightly, missing the corner, oversteering the car. There are so many little things that can be done to lose time.
Yes, and much to what many people think, it's not just about turning left.
It's not.
There's a lot of throttle control involved in all that. Many tracks, it's not just holding it flat.
No, and just got Matthew Kloet coming through, and looks like he may be setting a very good time. He was actually following a car in front of him, just getting a little bit of that draft, hopefully just giving him a little bit of an extra edge over some of the other people. And that's another thing in qualifying is, you know, especially when you've actually got multiple cars on track, it can be very hectic.
Yes, no, definitely. And also with qualifying, especially with the format we do here in ANZCAR, you're in open air. You don't have the benefits of the draft. You're not dragging others around. So it's a completely different lap, really, to a racing how you would in a race.
Yes, that's it. It really changes up the whole strategy. And you've really just got to try not to make any mistakes. Currently looking at Daniel Stevens here. Just doing a very good lap at the moment, looking very clean. He's keeping the car very smooth as he's going around the track. And he comes through, and we'll see where he sits once he crosses the line. And it looks like he's got 4th place there with a very respectable time. Daniel Stevens, a very good lap from him.
Yes, it was a very nice lap. He was keeping really low there through turns 3 and 4, especially through turn 4.
That's it. Now we've got an open qualifying for this event, slightly different to our regular season, of course. It does change up things a little bit for people, makes things a little bit different from our regular sort of regular season races. And again, that's something that can play into people's heads, is when things change, it can really affect you as a driver.
Most definitely. But if the drivers thought about it and they worked together here, they could actually use that open qualifying to their benefit.
That's it. You know, this is the thing with this kind of racing, is if you've got teammates around you, it's going to really help you. Blokes Advice Racing, for instance, we've got Illusion Motorsport. Who else have we got out there tonight? We've got a fair few teams out there with some very good drivers on board, and that could really help them out in the qualifying. Edward Foster, just on another qualifying lap, makes a small mistake, touches the wall, and has just gone across the infield.
And Jason Martin, he's gone to the top again. Consistent as always with a 28.672.
Yes, and unsurprising, it's such a little amount of time in it as well. This is one of the things with oval racing that is very hard as well, is there is such little time between the drivers. You don't have that advantage of a road course where you can really edge out a little bit of extra time on certain corners. You know, you could sort of some drivers can really make a big difference in their speed. But with an oval, there is such a little amount of track that you actually have running. There's so few corners that every single little mistake you make, every time you have a little bit of oversteer, it's going to cost you a bit of time.
Yeah, of course. And the difference to a road circuit, I guess, is on a road circuit, you have a lot harder braking zones. So you pull that car up a lot harder and slower. You have a great varying difference in speeds.
You do.
On an oval circuit like this, you have a more higher consistent average speed. So that's why the gap is tighter and the racing is tighter normally as well. So.
It is. Edward Foster, just watching him again, we just saw him just make another small mistake just going through, I think it was turn 3. He's really pushing the car, trying to get the most speed out of it as he possibly can. And unlike normal qualifying sessions where you only have 2 laps to do it in, with this open qualifying system, you've got to sort of you've got as much time as you've got 10 minutes to set your laps. So you can go out there and try and capture a little bit of extra speed. Oh, Ricky Cornwall just caught an amazing slide there, just going through. He's abandoned the lap, of course, but a fantastic little slide there from Ricky Cornwall, and he managed to catch it just on the outside. Fantastic driving there by him. Jackson Callow now we're watching. Jackson Callow is one of those drivers that tends to be quite good at getting sort of good speeds and a good starting position.
Yeah, he's an exciting one to watch as well. I've had a few races where I've been at the end where I normally always am, but I've made some exciting racing, and that's what counts, you know. And I remember Jackson being involved there on one of the truck races. It was quite good.
Yes, he is always he's always good to watch. There's usually a few things to watch with him, and he can do some amazing moves. And he's still learning. That's the scary thing with Jackson, is he's still learning. He's still young, and he's still getting talent. You know, which is always scary when you're a little bit older, because you know, us old dogs, it's harder to teach new tricks, but the youngsters, they can really catch on quickly and get some different speeds up.
Yes, and also they've got their health and reflexes.
Yes, they do.
I tell you, Carl, they make a difference.
It does, absolutely. You know, you notice it as you just get that little bit older. You notice your times sometimes just drop that little bit. There's a few special exemptions out there sometimes. You know, with age comes experience, of course. So you do generally miss a few wrecks, and you sort of know how to avoid things, but definitely the speed does start to lack a little bit as you just get a little bit older. So the qualifying session is coming to an end. The checkered flag is out. Everybody who's setting their laps now will be on their last one. Stephen Williams is just setting his very last lap, but just having a big slide off one of the corners. He's going to be starting 12th. So what we'll do is we'll just run through the grid as it is. So in first place we have Jason Martin, and second Bruce Smith. Bruce Smith was one of those drivers that's definitely going to be up there. He always is, and it's going to be very exciting to see those two. Row 2 we have Edward Foster and Ricky Cornwall. Row 3 we have Daniel Stevens with Riley Curtis. Great position for Riley Curtis to start in. Matt Danson and Matthew Kloet have row 4. Ashley Lear and Jackson Callow row 5. Bryan Richmond, Stephen Williams on row 6. Aaron Wilton and Mitchell McLeod on row 7. Jake Moloney with Michael Scurlock on row 8. Scott Butler and getting a blank on row 9. So that's the end of my qualifying lineup that I've got. Everybody else will be starting hasn't set a lap, so to say, and will be starting in the later positions. Unfortunately, my system doesn't show everybody where they're starting from that place back.
But how close is this, Carl? I reckon that's 2 or 3 bumper widths between first and 16th place.
Yes, it's going to be a very close race tonight, and I tell you what, I'm definitely looking forward to it. The audience are in for a treat for sure.
Yes, I wonder whether we'll see them racing down low here, or whether they're going to stay middle or high. What do you think, mate?
Well, I actually was out there just in a ghost session earlier in practice, driving the lovely Mazda MX-5. Mazda MX-5s, great little cars, but not the fastest cars in the world. However, I was watching everybody as they were going through their lines on the corners, and everybody was keeping a low line on the sort of first set of corners on turn 1 and 2, and as they were coming off the back stretch onto the turns 3 and 4, they were actually keeping to the midline. So it seems everybody prefers a slight lower line on that first set of corners and that midline on the second set of corners. So it will be interesting to see who has the car to sit on a sort of the perfect line tonight. It will be interesting to see.
Yeah, and we've got 200 laps here as well, so by the time they put some rubber onto that track, it's going to be a bit grippy, so it could end up in the middle there, I reckon.
Yeah,
to high maybe near the end.
It will be interesting to see what happens with the race as it goes on. As you say, 200 laps. This is much longer than a normal race that we have, double the length almost of any race we've had this season. So we're going to be looking at around about 2 hours of racing tonight. So I don't think I'm going to have a voice tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. The pace car leads everybody off, but the most important thing I think for this race for people is going to be keeping out of trouble. Something I often say is, drivers need to really keep out of trouble and sort of avoid incidents if they can, because if you crash early on in this race, it's really going to affect you. However, with it being such a long race, you do have a chance to claw your way back up a little bit. If you do fall a lap down, it's not the end of the world. A safety car period can bring you back on that lead lap. There's a lot of things you can do. Even 2 laps down, you might be able to pull yourself back up from a dire situation to somewhere where you're looking a little bit more comfortable.
Yes, definitely. I guess at the end of the day, though, coming down to those last few laps, I'd rather have a clean car than a damaged car.
Would indeed, and we are racing. Everybody is off. The cars have started, and looks like we've got a good clean start. They're going to be going 2 by 2 into the first corner. Jason Martin looks to have taken a good lead at the start, with Bruce Smith sliding in just behind him. So fantastic start for Jason Martin. Everybody's sort of holding their position, and I imagine most people are going to want to just keep in a sort of relatively sort of casual pace almost, just keeping up with the car in front, but not racing too hard, because it is a long race, and the harder you race, of course, the hotter your engine's going to get, the more rubber you're going to lose, the fuel loads, you're going to use up more fuel. If it does run green for a long period, you're going to have to pit earlier, and it could really cost you a race.
Yeah, they're going to want to have to watch those tyres. They're going to want to look after those tyres. Look, anyone can be fast for 2 laps. It's about being fast over a long period of laps. So it's more consistency. So, yes, definitely. It's you want to watch them tyres, watch your car. It's a long race. You're not going to win it in the first half, so why try?
That's it. You can never win a race on the first corner, but you can always lose one.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people forget that. I guess they're keen, They're like, oh, I want to pass as many cars as I can and get a good start, but that causes more problems than it's worth most of the time, and it pays to be patient.
It does, yes. And I wonder if we're going to see the dynamic weather coming into effect tonight, well, the dynamic time system, because it is late evening as we're starting this race. The sun is going down, and that means there's going to be the track is going to start cooling off a lot quicker than normal. We're not going to have the sun up there to make the track nice and warm for these guys. Do you think that's going to be a problem tonight?
I guess it'll be a test. With the new system coming in, it's going to be a test for these drivers to see whether it does affect the tyres and how the car handles. I believe it will, especially if it have a major temperature drop.
Yes, it could really make a difference there. Actually, we'll just look at the weather. The weather at the moment, it's 75 degrees air temperature, and
I looked that up. That's also 23 degrees Celsius.
Yep.
So that's actually a good temp to be running on. The tyres will not be too overheated.
No, that's it. And track temperature's 77 Fahrenheit, which is about 20 Celsius, I think, if I'm doing my maths correctly there. So not hugely hot, so that's going to really help people out. We've got a great little race going on at the front between Edward Foster and Ricky Cornwall. Ricky Cornwall is just taking the high line at the moment. Edward Foster is just trying to take the low line. Everybody seems to be pretty comfortable with that sort of midline on the last set of corners, as I said. Although Ricky Cornwall is taking an extremely high line going up there. And Ashley Lear actually has just jumped into contention. He's just passed Edward Foster for 4th place, really rocketing up there. He must have just got a lovely bit of draft from Ricky Cornwall in front as he went a little bit high there.
Yeah, we've got a good pack there with Ashley Lear and Daniel Stevens and Riley Curtis really bring in a good racing stint in this pack they've got going.
They have, yeah. I'm just looking at Daniel Stevens, actually, and looks like he's looking at going for that low line, trying to... Possibly, we might even just get free wide going off one of the corners in any moment here with Edward Foster there. He moves down the track a little bit, trying to defend from Ashley Lear. So, Edward's just in a real unfortunate spot right now where he's having to attack and defend, of course. While Ricky Cornwall just has to worry about that slight little bit of defence at the moment, being in the front of the pack.
Yeah, look, Edward's on the charge now, though. He's putting a bit of pressure on Ricky, but look, it could burn his tyres up, so he has to be cautious at this point.
Yes, and of course the other thing as well, of course I don't race on the ovals. I don't race the NASCARs or anything like that. But engine temperature, I assume, is going to be a big worry for these people as well. You're going to have that thing of engines starting to cook themselves, especially when you're running close in the pack there. And Ashley Lear just got squeezed a little bit low, just touched the grass, so very good little save from him. Edwards just past Ricky Cornwall. And at the back we have a car just absolutely... Jake Moloney, actually, he just had a massive slide and managed to save the car. Might have just caught that in the broadcast, but he had a very close moment there and he is falling a little bit further back. But we will keep with the battle at the front.
And Scott Butler up there, he's running at the back of the pack, whether he was involved in it too.
Yes, it's you know, when you're racing on ovals, it's such close racing, it's very easy to touch. You know, and sometimes it's very easy to touch just accidentally. It's not anything malicious in there. It's just one of those easy accidents you can make.
Of course, and when you're doing the speeds that we do in these race cars, you've got that whole momentum and kinetic energy thing, so you don't need a big bump to see a disastrous result. No,
you do not. Bryan Richmond there just was rubbing doors with Mitchell McLeod. Very, very close racing back here with the 47 and 40. So we've got racing all across the pack at the moment. Some fantastic drives. Ricky Cornwall is just having a great battle with Ashley Lear still. They're still side by side, but Ashley Lear looks to have got the bottom line and has just squeezed past and is just going to slot in front of Cornwall.
Though Edward Foster has... He's making a break now. He's gotten past Ricky there, and he's making a break in third position.
He is. Yes, he has really left the pack behind. They've started dropping back quite a bit from him. He's definitely got a fast car tonight, and I think he knows that. Edward Foster has had a fantastic season in the Thunder, although he didn't manage to get a win. So I think he's really trying for the win tonight, I imagine, because it's something he didn't get to enjoy this year in Thunder. So I think a win here at the All-Star race would be fantastic for him.
And being the competitive fellow that he is, like most of our drivers, which you sort of have to be, it's good to have fun, but you need that competitive streak as well to keep you going and strive to be the next best you can be, hey?
Absolutely. The amount of stories I can tell about Edward Foster's competitive streak are endless, mainly involving myself, him, and chasing me with a spanner, things like that. So I won't get too much into it, but yes, he is a very competitive driver.
Yeah, not sure if we want to venture down that path, Carl, but no, definitely.
Yeah, he's got a very good competitive edge, and the thing about Edward, though, he's a very clean driver. We've had a few kart races and things like that, and whenever it's been close, it's always been close, but there's never been any touching or anything sort of really sort of going into that state. He's a very fast driver and very good at close racing. And we're seeing some very close racing back here with Ashley Lear and Daniel Stevens now.
Yeah, they're giving each other room there. They're racing hard and racing fast, but they're racing clean. And as you know, you can bump panels a little in these. It's a bit more deceptive than people think. You can't beat the cars up as much as you believe, but you can give a few dings here and there, and that is racing. You know, you got to get that.
That's stock car racing. This is the thing. Stock car and touring cars, a bit of bumping is expected. There's nothing wrong with rubbing door panels and things like that in stock cars. It's to be expected. Of course, you don't want to go T-boning somebody or giving them a big whack up the rear, but just giving them that little rub, just letting them you know them there. It's one of those things that's a skill all of its own.
Well, they say rubbing is racing, and oh, we've had a big crash right here.
Oh, whereabouts? Oh, yes, I can see we've got McLeod off. Luckily, we haven't got the yellow out. Did you see who he was actually involved with there?
No, I think he went high and got into the wall and came down. I'm not sure if he actually hit anyone else. I'm just having a quick look now.
Okay. So yeah, McLeod, fantastic save there. Actually, he did manage to keep the car on the tarmac. So really good, drive there. And actually, we just got somebody else just gone off the track, and it looks like it's Scurlock. No, Stephen Williams. Sorry, Stephen Williams just had a big run off the track there. So it looks like the Illusion boys are having a bit of trouble tonight. A real shame for them.
I was just looking at Mitchell McLeod's accident, and no one else was involved that I could see. He sort of got loose and went up high and hit the wall.
Yes, I'm just looking back at Scurlock, and yeah, Scurlock actually he's just run completely wide, just completely run off the track, going through the just going across the start-finish line. So a bit of a weird one for him. Scurlock's usually one of those drivers that tends to be very stuck to the road, so I don't know what's going on down there. Maybe, hopefully it's not any connection issues. That would be a real shame. But up the front we have Bruce Smith catching on Jason Martin. Jason Martin has got Bruce Smith all in his rear mirrors at the moment, so that's going to be putting a little bit of pressure on him. But Jason has led so many races now, I doubt it's going to be too much of a problem for him.
Yeah, Jason won't be fazed by this. If anything, he'll probably use it to his advantage, and if Bruce is smart, he will use this to his advantage as well and race with Jason.
Yes, Bruce Smith is one of our dark horses of the year. He just appears in a few races, but he is always very fast. He's a fantastic driver and very sportsmanlike as well. I remember one of the Thunder races, I can't remember which race it was, he was actually involved in a little bit of an accident towards the end of the race, and I think it took Jason Martin off, and Bruce Smith ended up actually pulling off the road rather than taking the win, just to apologise to Jason Martin. So absolute sportsman through and through, and these two know each other well on the track now.
Look, it's great to race hard and race fast, but there will be incidents when you do that, and that's when it comes back to you and what type of sportsman you are. And luckily most of our drivers are in my opinion, are great sportsmen. fans and would go out of their way to say sorry.
Yeah, we are very lucky in ANZCAR. We have a fantastic league, and it's great to see all the Australian, New Zealand crowd actually doing so well, and really good bunch of lads. I was in a Mazda race earlier this week. I've just started racing in iRacing now, which some people are finding extremely hilarious, because unfortunately I'm having to use a gamepad, so I'm completely off the pace, but I am managing
to... Sorry to interrupt there, Carl. Edward, he just went in the infield. He got a bit loose there.
Oh.
And, he hasn't dropped position, but Ashley Lear is catching him quicker than he was.
Okay, we'll just jump to a replay there, see if we can catch that. So yeah, Edward Foster is just going down, and yeah, he's just lost it, just gone through the infield, and that happened to a few drivers tonight. Actually, it's Scurlock actually had the same thing happen to him. So not sure exactly what's happening there. I think maybe people are just running a little bit too close for the trying to cut through the actual, making that sort of little kink as straight as possible, and just getting slightly off centre and getting a bit too close to the grass maybe.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of a dip there coming out of turn 4 and before you come into the tri-oval. If you get loose coming out of there and you don't control it before entering the tri-oval, it's can be game over.
Yes, and a little dip like that can really cause the biggest amount of problems. It's one of those things that you just sort of, you sort of think, oh, well, how can a tiny little dip make that much of a problem? But when you're racing at the speeds that these guys are, at 200 miles per hour, when you touch that dip, it's like a speed bump almost, and it can just drive you into the way you don't want to go. Now we are seeing a few green flag pit stops going on. We've got Mitchell McLeod, Daniel Stevens and Ricky Cornwall all have made stops at the moment. It looks like a couple of them have actually got a little bit of damage to them. We'll just try and get a little bit of a closer look at Daniel Stevens. So yeah, Daniel Stevens has actually got a bit of damage to him. Ricky Cornwall as well has got a bit of front damage. And Mitchell McLeod has got a big amount of front damage as well. So I reckon we've had a bit of a bump there somewhere in the field. Unseen by us all, but we'll see if we can actually catch what happened there.
It looks like Jake Moloney and Sam McLeod have put their car back in the trailer for the night.
Oh, that is a big shame. Some very good drivers there that have gone from the race, sadly.
And I also see Ricky Cornwall has just done the same, so that is really disappointing.
Ricky Cornwall was one of those drivers that I expected to be way up there, but with the amount of damage he had, I'm not surprised. The car had quite a lot of damage on it for didn't see the reason, but it did have a lot of damage on it. We'll see if we can actually, I'll see if I can actually go back and find that on the replay. We'll see if I can catch anything there.
So we've got an awesome battle going on right now between Edward Foster and Ashley Lear. They've been battling for the last couple of laps, and Ashley's tried to go down low and pass Edward, but he's been consistent, and now he's tacking in behind him.
Okay, so it looks like Ricky actually went off the track and had a bit of a big off, so unfortunate there. So we'll jump to that battle with Foster and Lear. Some really good racing out there tonight.
Oh, there is, Carl, definitely. And look, it's we've got several packs here. We've got Jason Martin and Bruce Smith running at the front, and then we go back to Edward Foster and Ashley Lear, and then there's another gap back to another small pack. So it's not one big pack of racing tonight. No,
it's not. Matt Danson actually has got a bit of a pack with Darren McKenzie and Aaron Wilton at the moment. He's got a good little pack running there, and the drivers have really just got to try and sort of keep the cars clean at the moment. And Ashley Lear is just going down the inside of Edward Foster. Now, what these...
Oh, rub panels there, I think, Carl.
Yes, just a little bit of contact there between the two of them. Very slight.
but Ashley's got it done. Looks like he's got this pass done on Edward.
Yep, they are through, and no major damage to either car by the looks of it. They're both looking very clean still, which is what we want to see. So just that little rub of panels, just as you sort of kind of expect at this sort of speed and this kind of close racing. So we're on lap 36 of 200, and without hopefully putting the commentator's curse on things, we have had no yellow flags. Hopefully we'll see some good green racing for the remainder of the race. We don't want to see too many cautions out there tonight.
No, look, no one wants cautions when it comes to racing. It's better to race it on green flag laps at higher speeds. And it's better for the audience to be watching that as well. It's more entertaining.
It is, yes. And just jumping back to Riley Curtis now, he's actually catching on Matt Danson. And Riley Curtis is the driver that's completed the most laps of the Thunder Series this year. He actually completed the most laps and had a very good sort of a very good year, really. He pretty much completed all but I think 5 laps this year of the Thunder Series, which is a fantastic stat to have. He's just so consistent. He is one of those drivers that may not be there in speed just yet. He might be he's just in that sort of area where he's just gaining confidence, just gaining that little bit of speed. But he is so consistent that when he actually gets that car where he likes it and feels comfortable and can get the proper speed out the car, I can see him winning a lot of races.
Yeah, that's how you get speed and consistency, is by doing laps. You know, so well, he's proven his dedication already by achieving this achievement, and well, he's ain't going to get faster by practicing while being that way.
He is, yeah, and just as we're watching there, we've actually got Daniel Stevens, who is who pitted for repairs. He's got a big bit of damage on the back of his car, but he is going past cars like a hot knife through butter because he's got fresh tyres on. Now we can really see the advantage of tyres, and as we speak, Bruce Smith has actually come into the pit lane. I think he's noticed the speed advantage of the people of fresh tyres at the moment, seen how much faster they are, and has come into the pit lane to try and pit stop on the greens. Hopefully he'll remain green, and this could be a real trigger for everybody else, because if Bruce Smith starts going out there and setting some fast laps, he is going to really catch people and undercut them.
Yeah, he definitely will, and I'm starting to wonder that's why Edward Foster is slowing a bit. I see Matthew Kloet is gaining on him, and I'm just wondering how Edward's tyres are going.
Yes, tyres can be a big thing, especially on these ovals. Tyre wear is a big problem, and it's amazing how much difference you get from a pair of brand new boots on these cars. What happens is, as you're going along, you don't really notice it too much because your brain, you just keep correcting the car and you keep driving along, and the car may feel fine and feel like it's going fast, but you're losing so much time because you're just doing those little tiny slides. The car isn't keeping the corner as well, so you're losing speed through the corners, and you really need to watch your times and just see when that sweet spot is to change the tyres. And I think now is the time, because we're getting a few people in for pits as we speak. Bryan Richmond's actually just stopped as well, so we could see a big influx of people coming in for pits, and I'm just wondering if we're going to see some more of the front runners pitting just to try and cover off Bruce Smith, because if Jason Martin stays out like he is, I can see him losing some time. Actually, just going to look at Jason Martin's time. He's setting a lap time of about 30.8 at the moment, while Bruce Smith is setting times of 29.6. So about 2 seconds faster at the moment on fresh tyres. So you have to stop. People are going to have to really stop now. Danny G's come in, Stephen Williams, Bryan Richmond, they've all come into pit, because staying out at the moment is just a death sentence for your race unless you get a yellow flag. The people who stay out long now are going to be praying for a caution, because of course... Oh, sorry.
As we speak, in comes Edward Foster into the pits.
Yes, not surprisingly. this could really help him out on his fight with the drivers back there, because if they stay out longer and we don't get a yellow flag, he could really start catching them, because the speed advantage on those fresh tyres is just astronomical. Bruce Smith just set a 29.2 on that last lap, while Jason Martin set a 30.9. So yeah, the speed advantage is not worth staying out. We've just got a big influx of people. Matthew Kloet, Riley Curtis have come in as well. Everybody's coming in for their pit stops now. How long do you think these people would be running on fuel as well? Because that's another thing that can really affect your race.
To be honest, when it comes to these cars, I'm not 100% Carl. I haven't run them enough.
Yeah.
But look, I was just looking at it before, and we've 47 laps under green. Now, we've had most of the field only just pit. Now those tyres would have been had. I reckon fuel probably, you know, they might have needed a splash and dash. So it could have been getting quite desperate there.
Yes, of course, when you're running under green, you are using so much more fuel than under yellow, of course. When you're running these cars full pelt, especially when you're in the lead and you haven't got sort of... Sometimes when you're running in a pack, you're not using as much fuel, of course, because you're getting a bit of a hole cut through the air for you. It makes it a little bit easier. But when you're in the front, when you're having to push through that air, they've got the resistance of the air on the car, so it's having to push it, so it's having to use more fuel for that. You're also using more fuel for the speed, and it can become a bit of an issue. So we're seeing people stopping around about the lap 47 to 49 mark, so maybe they could run about 50 to 60 laps of green flag racing with fuel currently, but the tyres obviously aren't lasting as well as they hoped.
No, and yeah, I'm not 100% sure how tyres go here, but they've done quite well to get as far as they have with them, in my opinion. And it's, well, first, second and third are running basically clean out races by themselves. Except we've got Michael Scurlock coming up on Matt Danson here a bit. And that would take toll on the tyres itself.
Yes, it really can. You don't... It depends how your car's handling, but one of the other things as well, of course, is when you're running low on fuel, you're going to be running a little bit faster as well, because you don't have that weight of the fuel in the car. And as we speak, Jason Martin has just pitted. So we're going to see now how much time he's lost to Bruce Smith. It's going to be interesting to see how much time these guys have lost. Ashley Lear has pitted, Matt Danson, Michael Scurlock, and Darren McKenzie has also pitted. So we've had a big influx of pit stops. Now, Jason Martin has hit his marks well. Usually the biggest problem for Jason is the pit stops. He really struggles sometimes, and he's been working very hard to improve that.
So we've managed to get 50 laps here on green, and they're now pitting. And even when it comes down to the fuel, even if they still have some in the tank, they have to think, well, do I put extra in or do I not, just in case as a caution? Strategy plays out a fair bit here.
It does, yes. And Bruce Smith has just pulled up a massive lead on Jason Martin now. He's really got a decent gap ahead of Jason Martin. Edward Foster's actually caught on Jason Martin as well. He's just behind him, and Jason's just coming out on cold tyres, of course, which can lead... Usually your sort of outlap is a bit slower because the tyres are a little bit cold, not up to temperature. You've just got to feel how those new tyres are. Make sure you're confident. So that can really lose you some time. So Edward Foster is now only 2.7 seconds behind Martin, whereas he was about... I think he was around about 6 to 8 seconds behind him before the pit stop phases.
Yes, no, that was a very good strategy that Edward took upon himself by pitting a few laps earlier there.
Yeah, it's really helped him out for the race, but the big winner is Bruce Smith. Bruce Smith has actually pulled a 12.3 second gap on Jason Martin. So that's how much time he lost by staying out on those older tyres.
Just just having a look at a battle here between Stephen Williams and Matthew Kloet.
Yep, jumped to them.
Looks like Stephen Williams just tapped the wall and Matthew Kloet goes past.
Okay. So, shame for Stephen Williams, but Kloet's having a great race, and Kloet's usually one of those guys that's up there on pace. He is a very fast driver. So, as we start to settle in a little bit, we're starting to see the gap times now as they should be. Now, one of the things that is going to affect Bruce Smith now is he is on tyres that are about 5 to 6 laps older than everybody else. So, the strange thing is, the advantage he gained from pitting that a little bit earlier, he may lose a little bit of that now, because people are going to start catching him a little bit faster, because they're going to have a little bit of fresher rubber on than him.
Yeah, and this is where a caution would play out nicely for Bruce Smith right now.
Yes, that's it. If you can get back on sequence with everybody, it really helps, because at the moment Jason Martin is pulling in around about half a second a lap on Bruce Smith. From what I'm seeing, he's really got the speed going now. So that last lap, Jason Martin was a 29.1. Just see what happens on this lap. 29.2 for Jason Martin, and Bruce Smith was a 30.8. So Bruce Smith's losing about quarter to half a second a lap now on these tyres, and this is where that sort of early pit stop can really affect you.
Yeah, and it's to do with the consistency and other issues to do with racing as well. But it looks like Jason is just starting to reel Bruce in here, and I think Bruce would be starting to pray that we do get a caution.
Yeah, the caution would really help him out now. And 59 laps, almost 60 laps now without a caution is very good driving. And the main reason we probably haven't seen a caution tonight is no disparity to the rest of the field and rest of the drivers through the rest of our series, but it is really the cream of the crop out there tonight. We have got the drivers that are all usually at the top of the field, the more experienced drivers, those drivers that are more used to that oval racing. Now, we have seen a few little mistakes, of course, but no mistakes to bring out a yellow, and it can be really, when you've got some of the best drivers out there, it really makes for a different kind of race, because you have these long green stint periods which really throw off a lot of people.
Yeah, well, they are our elite ANZCAR drivers, most of our elite ANZCAR drivers, and so you sort of expect it. Though, look, it sets the standard for the rest of the leagues, and it's something for them to follow. Absolutely,
it's something to aspire to, because these drivers are really at the top of their game. They are very good drivers, especially when we're talking about people like Bruce Smith, Jason Martin, Foster, Danson, Scurlock. They're just so good at what they do. They're always so close, and in their respective series, they are fantastic. Now, of course, driving a slightly different car does make things a little bit different tonight, but they still just have that talent. They still have that oval experience. And what you can always do, especially with iRacing, which is a fantastic feature, is actually do the ghost racing, is drive. If you sort of watch one of these races through the iRacing system, is you can actually jump into the ghost race and race these guys and see how you do against them. But one of the other things you can always do, of course, is ride on board with them, see how they steer, watch their lines. You can pick up those little bits of detail that you don't always get, and it's a bit harder to do in real life, of course. And it can really help out with future racing, because you can just see where you're making those slight mistakes, where you're losing those tenths of a second, which are so important.
Yeah, it's amazing the way the simulator world is coming to help us with real world racing, and that we've got a few really good battles here going on. Matthew Kloet and Matt Danson, and then we go back to Stephen Williams and Danny G and Riley Curtis. We've got some really good packs here forming, I think they're starting to work together, Carl. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, it does look like that. The Blokes Advice team, the Blokes Advice team there and the Illusion Autosport team, there with Danny G as well up ahead there. They're really going to start working together and just start getting that little pack going. What you can do when you're working in a pack like that is change positions as well. If your car starts overheating, you can just pull out in front, get a little bit of clean air, have the person go behind you, let their fuel mileage drop a little bit. It is important to work together, and working together in a little pack like that can really drag you up the field and make you start closing that gap on the leaders. And speaking of the leaders, they are really getting quite close now. Jason Martin has taken a lot of time out of Bruce Smith. He's now only 3 seconds behind him. So fantastic driving there by Jason Martin. Edward Foster sits in third still, with Ashley Lear catching him at a great rate of knots again. So we've got some really good racing, and people being off sequence really makes for great racing on ovals. It's similar to actual road racing as well, of course, is, you know, when you're off sequence, when you make different strategies, it can really affect a race. And of course, don't know how much fuel these guys put in as well. Sometimes people only put in a small amount of fuel, as you were saying before, Tristo, just to try and make the car a little bit lighter, allow them to have a little bit more speed on this run. They might try for a slightly shorter stint. They might gamble that there will be a yellow flag coming. So just put, you know, half a tank of fuel in there and try for that sort of slightly faster car, but knowing they're not going to last as long on the track.
No, and that's it, and that's the whole racecraft strategy coming into play. It's not just about who's the fastest. It's a lot of small details really come into what makes a race and what takes a win home.
Yes, and as we see that Ashley Lear is just down the inside of Edward Foster. Ashley Lear's got some great pace going at the moment. He's really going great guns, setting his lap times around about 30.2 at the moment, which is a fairly decent pace from everybody else. He's really going fast. At the front, we're sort of looking around about, Bruce Smith is setting about a 30.5 lap pace, while Jason Martin's at a 30.1. So Ashley Lear is pretty much on the same pace as Jason Martin, so he's going to start catching up to that front pack sooner or later. And he's going to start catching on Bruce Smith as well. If Bruce Smith does hold Jason back, if he can sort of get his car and make the widest NASCAR he can make on this track, he might just slowly push Martin back, and we could get a really close race going for the front.
Yeah, I don't think Ed will mind that Ashley has passed him here. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure Ashley is on newer tyres as well.
Yes, that's it. Ashley stopped a little bit later than Foster, so that's really going to make a big difference, much like this battle we got at the front. Now, Jason Martin has caught Bruce Smith, so we are looking for the battle for the front of the pack here. Martin is just sitting on the bumper of Smith right as we go through here.
Yeah, Jason's definitely got the pace, and he'll just be patient here. He'll just wait for his move, and here we go. He goes low.
He's got that move done. Yeah, Jason's running a slightly different line than Bruce Smith as well. Bruce Smith seems to be running the lower line through the first couple of corners, and then the midline through the second set, while Jason was looking like he's running the high line through the first set of corners. However, that is going to probably change now that he is in front of Smith.
He's already starting to extend the lead, and you have to wonder, does it come down to fuel loads or different setups or what? They've both been the top two fastest cars running in the lead, but Jason's just...
Oh, sorry to cut you off there. We've actually got a... Aaron Wilton looks like he's made a big mistake. The front of his car's all crumbled. It is on the infield at the moment. Don't know exactly what happened there, but we'll see if we can actually catch up with that one. Just try and get a replay of that, see what happened.
Whoa, it looks like he was coming into the pits there, Carl, and he's locked up his brake. Oh, slow car pulled up in front of him.
Okay.
That's a really unfortunate incident, that is.
Yeah, just on the replay now, we've got a little bit of a longer replay here, and I'll see what happens. We should have that coming up any moment now. So, not sure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's very, very nasty. The 66 there. So, the 66 of Daniel Stevens just caught him. And really unfortunate accident there for Aaron Wilton. Not sure what Darren Stevens was doing. He looked like he was going very slow there. So, some sort of problem possibly for him. So, real shame there. Not what you want to happen. And a bit of a nightmare when you're coming into the pits.
Yeah, and it's 75 laps. We're like almost halfway, so that's very disappointing.
It is, yes, and it's sometimes a little bit soul destroying as well. You know, when you're racing relatively well and something like that happens, it's very hard to get back into the flow and get yourself back into the racing element for this sort of series.
Yes, definitely. And Ashley Lear, he's he's going for a good drive here. He don't know how his lap times are, Cal, but he just seems to be on pace.
Well, Ashley is actually around about he's about a second slower than Jason. Sorry, not a second. He's about 0.1 of a second slower than Jason Martin. So he is really, really catching up to him. We just see there. I think it was Daniel Stevens just going past there, the unfortunate recipient of that accident further a little bit before. But Daniel Stevens was actually the one that pitted first last time round, so I wonder if he was going into the pit lane while that accident happened, because he did pit first through that last set of sort of pit stops, and his times were really evident that the fresh tyres were something that you need to work on. So again, this may trigger some drivers to think about just pitting and getting some fresh tyres on, because the times could really help them out. And if we are looking at a longer green flag run, again, it could make you, it could absolutely make you a hero, or it could make you a zero.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Daniel, he's 6 laps down. So he's got good pace there, but unfortunately this incident he's had is going to be ineffective at this stage until he can get some laps back up. Yeah,
that's it. He's going to be praying for some caution periods, because without them he's not going to be able to really gain those laps back. But he is a good indicator for the rest of the field of how fresh tyres are working on this track. And currently he is the fastest car out on the circuit, even with that rear damage. He's setting lap times of around about a 20.9 at the moment, which is almost a second faster than everybody else. The only car that's really got much more pace than that is actually Matt Danson, who is setting some very good lap times as well, by the looks of things. He's starting to catch.
Overtaking Edward Foster too.
Yeah, he is definitely catching. He's sort of on a similar pace to Ashley Lear. So Matt Danson and Ashley Lear seem to be running very similar paces at the moment. Matt Danson just throwing me off a little bit in his very, very pretty pink car tonight. Of course, some people are running different liveries as well tonight, which is throwing off a few things for commentary. You look at the car and it takes a couple of seconds to realise who it is.
Yeah, no, it's good to see different liveries on cars. It makes it entertaining for the crowd, and I think the drivers get a kick out of it too, to be honest.
It does, yeah. And just speaking of liveries, we just got to mention Ashley Lear as well. Fantastic spirit for this race. The Christmas livery on there, Merry Christmas. The fantastic green, red and white of his car. A very pretty looking car tonight.
Yeah, and definitely getting into the season and all that. Merry Christmas to you all.
Yes, absolutely, and of course Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year when it comes. We will be looking at more racing next year for the series. Of course we'll be starting up, I think February is our first sort of, I think February is when we're starting up Thunder again. K&N and trucks I'm not too sure on, but we will be coming back next year with hopefully a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, and we'll be streaming it here, Performance E streaming as always, sending it to you in your home. You don't have to move from your seat.
Exactly. It makes it nice and easy to watch the race. And the great thing about this streaming is you can always catch it later as well. This is something that really is one of the best things about this, is you can of course catch it later and see what's happening. Well, after the race, I know a lot of drivers do rewatch these races on our channel, which is just great to see. So we've got to be careful about what we say about them, of course, because usually it ends up with them chasing us down and saying, how dare you say that about me. But joking aside, it is good to see that, and it's good for viewers as well, because it means if you do miss a race, you can always catch it later. So please subscribe to the channel, because there's always something on there for you.
Yeah, look, Carl, I cannot deny I am guilty of that myself. I watch my races that I race in that are broadcast. You get that little kick out of it, but look, it's good to watch for educational purposes and to help with your further racing as well.
Yes, that's it. It really does help. Just again, a really good tip for anybody for their racing is watching a race again and just watching your car. You can really see what you're doing wrong. And also, when you've got commentators talking over it, it can help a little bit, because sometimes they'll point out something that you don't notice. As we're watching this, we're actually watching Bruce Smith battling with Daniel Stevens, yeah, and Daniel Stevens just has so much more pace than Bruce Smith at the moment with those fresher tyres. Danny Stevens is setting times of about a 30.7 at the moment, while Bruce Smith is a 31.4. So, you know, really, sorry, 31.1. So, you know, real difference in their times. So, it is showing that for fresh tyres may be the way to go, especially if we are looking for another, say, 10 to 20 laps of green flag racing. It could really put you into a good spot.
Yeah, I think they really need to start considering another pit stop, because that looked like Daniel Stevens was passing a lap car.
Yeah, that's it. It didn't look like he was passing the leader, one of the lead cars. And he's going to be catching Jason Martin in no time as well. So these drivers are really going to have to start thinking about pitting. And of course, they're going to be sort of, especially the teams that have that are out there with multi-cars at the moment, they're going to be talking to each other and trying to work out what the best strategy is. But in all honesty, I think pitting now would be a very good idea. Of course, saying that, there could be a yellow flag and it would completely ruin your race. However, if we get another 10 to 20 laps of green flag racing, you're going to be catching up, and you're going to make so many more positions up, because everybody else is going to have to pit as well.
Yeah, if you don't know how to handle your tyres, it's going to be quite hairy out there at the moment. Yeah. And also with the fuel load dissipating, the weight load shifting the car, it starts to get unstable. And if you just that little split, not even tiny bit of second, there's lack of concentration, and you're in that wall. Yeah,
it's very easy to do. And as we just see there, Matthew Kloet's just overtaken Edward Foster. So Edward Foster is dropping back now at not a huge rate of speed, but he is definitely off the pace of everybody else. And again, it's maybe time for him to start thinking about pitting. I expect to see Bruce Smith actually coming into the pits any moment now. He's currently have 51 laps on this stint. So no, he hasn't had 51 laps. What's going on? I don't think so. Anyway,
B41.
Yeah, 41. I think. Yeah, sorry, my software sometimes lies to me. But yeah, Bruce Smith is definitely going to have to look at coming into the pits soon. He's pitted, I think it was around about lap 44, 45, I think it was. So he's definitely in the window for a pit stop. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to see everybody sort of considering pitting when he does again, especially some of the people that are falling back, like Foster. Scurlock might think about it as well. He's in a very good position at the moment of 7th place, but it could really help him gain some positions over the cars in front, because he's got a very big gap between himself and Foster at the moment.
Yeah, I really think that all these guys out here, especially the ones in the top 10, just praying for a caution. And as each lap goes by, they'll be thinking, how many more laps can I go before I have to pit?
Yeah, that's it. And just watching on board with Bruce Smith at the moment is he's running very high at the moment. He's really going for that high line, and it looks like it's not a choice. It's just because the car is understeering so much. He's really struggling getting that car around, and those tyres have definitely started falling off for him. He's setting times of a 31.2 last lap, which is around about 0.3 of a second slower than the rest of the field. He's really dropping time at the moment, and he's really going to have to consider a pit stop.
Yeah, I'd say the car isn't turning in.
And actually, as we talk, he's coming into the pits right now.
Yep.
So Bruce Smith comes into the pits. So I think what we're going to see here is a lot of other people considering having that pit stop as well, because we saw how much time Bruce Smith did get over the rest of the pack, and if we have another 10-15 laps of green flag racing where everybody else has to pit one more time, if you pit early now and you do get a caution in, say, 20 laps time, once everybody's pitted under green, you're going to be laughing. You're going to be so far ahead of the field. You're going to have a great position, great track position, and great position over the drivers that you're fighting against currently.
Yeah, so Jason Martin takes the lead, but will he come in the pit this lap?
Well, Jason had the lead. Jason actually overtook Bruce Smith a few laps back, so he's had the lead for a little bit of time, but everybody else is starting to pit now. Bruce Smith he's triggered everybody else to pit now. Nobody's going to be sort of taken in by his last strategy. So with that first pit stop, Bruce Smith, I think, took a lot of people aback because they thought he was pitting early. But he gained so much time over Martin with that stop that it seems daft to actually try and not pit now. So I think we'll see Jason Martin coming in very shortly. He did have a bit of a decent gap between himself and Smith, but I think in the next 2 laps to 3 laps we will see him pitting.
Yeah, it's my apologies. I forgot. Yeah, he was leading, and I was thinking he's going to try and push ahead here, try and get quite a few laps ahead, get as far ahead as he can before he has to come into the pits.
No need to apologise. It's a long race, and this is your first time up in the commentary booth, isn't it, Tristo?
I've done a couple of cameos before, but yeah, so no. First real serious go up here in the booth, I guess. Yeah,
so good to have you up here at last, and good to have you with me as well, because we've had a couple of times where it's looked like you might be, but misfortune has led to other things, so it's good to have you here with me. And as we speak, we are getting more and more people just coming into the pit stops. We're going to see a lot of people just really taking advantage of this. Riley Curtis has just stopped, and it will be interesting to see how it affects the people that have stayed out that little bit later as well, because at the moment the people on fresh tyres are setting some blistering times. They're around about 1.5 seconds quicker than our leader and the rest of the pack at the moment. So those fresh tyres are really making a difference.
They will be, and there's still a few out there on old tyres.
As we speak, sorry to interrupt you, Jason Martin has come into the pits. We'll watch this one, make sure he hits his marker nice and well, which has been the Achilles stop of Jason Martin in some races. Yep, it looks like he's got there nice and well. Beautiful pit stop from Jason Martin, so we'll see him back on track. But now we'll see where he comes out in comparison to Bruce Smith, because it's not quite as much of a gap between himself and Smith this time. He's pitted a little bit sooner than he did last time round. So we'll see what happens. Now Bruce Smith is definitely going to take the lead, but will he be able to hold it? That's the big question.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be able to push forward with a big enough gap here.
Yeah, he's just come out in front of Martin, so it's not as big a gap as last time. We've got around about, I'd say the gap is around about 2 to 3 seconds at the moment between himself and Smith. About 10 or so car lengths, so it's not going to be a massive gap at the moment, and those fresher tyres on Martin may really help him catch up to the back of Smith's car.
It will for sure, and the thing is look, got to give it to him. Jason Martin is a bit of a freak when it comes to these tyres, you know.
Just to interrupt you, sorry Tristo, we've got a great battle going on back with Ashley Lear, Edward Foster and Matthew Kloet. All three of them are racing incredibly hard at the moment. Sorry, where are we? Not Ashley Lear. Where are we?
Steve Williams and Matthew Kloet.
Yes, that's it. So yeah, so great little battle going on there. We were almost 3 wide going through that corner. So yeah, some fantastic little racing going on there, and Foster's really holding the car well. Now, this time round, Edward Foster didn't make as much positions as he did last time on the pit stops. Last time round, he managed to claw his way back up to 3rd position. This time, he sits in 5th. So, as we say, everybody was pitting a little bit closer because they did know that that tyre advantage was going to really affect them.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that Edwards pitted here, has he?
He has made the stop, yes.
Oh, he has? Okay, yeah. So he's on fresh tyres.
Yeah, he's stopped a little bit earlier than everybody else by my account. I think he stopped around about 1 to 2 laps earlier than the rest of the people around him. So, yeah, so everybody else is on a little bit of a fresher tyre stint at the moment, which is going to really help them out, just with that little bit of extra pace.
It looks like Matthew Kloet, he's getting more pace coming into turn 1 and 2, and he's sticking his nose out to have a look down the inside there of Edward, but he just can't get it done.
No, and this is where Edward becomes very, very good at driving. He's very good at being annoying. Just placing his car perfectly on the racing line so you can't get past him, and from experience I can tell you it can be very frustrating. Just looking at the back of him, it's just a very annoying place to be, and he's very good at keeping somebody behind him and racing while he's doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see how well he does with Kloet there. And they are catching... Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that, Carl. I was just saying, it definitely make you think twice, you know, before trying to pull off a manoeuvre to get past him.
Yes. You don't want to make the lunge on Foster because he will make you suffer for it. Ashley Lear is actually pulling out a bit of a decent gap now as well. He's made up a very good amount of positions, and himself and Matt Danson are having a good little battle as well. They've got Daniel Stevens in front of them on those slightly older tyres now compared to the rest of the field, who's just pulled up high just to let the faster cars through, because he's 6 laps down now. So Matt Danson and Ashley Lear are having a great little battle. But up the front we have got Jason Martin overtaking Bruce Smith on the inside. A fantastic move by Jason Martin there. Bruce Smith had nowhere he could go. He really couldn't do anything to hold Martin behind him.
And Jason, yeah, he's just pushing out now. He's gonna drive past this lap car and just extend his lead and try and get as far out as possible.
He is, yeah, and this lapped car has actually really affected Bruce Smith, because he's just caught him at the worst possible time. He did get a little bit of a draft from it, but it did drop him back a little bit too. So he's dropped back around about half a second already, and this is where Jason Martin's going to push out. And as you said, he is a bit of a freak sometimes when it comes to tyre management. He's capable of really just pushing those tyres and making them go very well.
Yeah, Bruce can just stick with Jason here. He looks like he can the tail of the draft, and he could slowly bring the gap closer, but as you said, he was working there to get past that lap car, and it cost him an extra half a second, and that gave Jason that extra half a second to start pushing and pushing that lead out.
It did. And just one other thing to mention really now is, just as we're looking around, just at the sky really, is the sun is definitely disappearing on us. We can really start to see the sort of sky and clouds just start to darken a little bit, and the shadows are growing very long on the track as well. It's starting to get a little bit darker by the looks of things.
Yeah, the lighting is becoming more prominent as well. It's yeah, really starting to turn day into night, you know, as they say, and it's an amazing feature that we've been gifted with, you know.
Yes, it's fantastic. Dynamic time and weather and all of that stuff is fantastic. Of course, weather is not yet a major thing, but just the dynamic shadows, dynamic timing, all of that aspect really does make a big difference, and it can really affect a race and really affect how things go. Let's just have a little look at the track information. We're still at track temperature of 78 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, so we've not really dropped too much track temperature, and doesn't look like the air temperature's dropped too much either at the moment, but we may start seeing it drop a little bit more as we get further into this race. Around about lap 150 I think we'll start seeing it starting to cool down quite a bit.
We've got a bit of a battle going on between Edward Foster and Matthew Kloet, just mid-pack here, and
yes,
it's every lap they're just swapping places. It's really good to watch. It's been a great race so far, a clean race, and a lot of open air racing, not many packs involved, which is quite unusual when it comes to NASCAR, I guess.
Yes, it's been an unusual race in that aspect. There's been very few incidents out on the track, and the incidents that have happened have not really been big enough to call a caution. And also the packs have just been very clean. The racing's just been very open. There's not been much going on. They've been very very generous towards each other, and sometimes in these all-star races they're a bit more fun than your average race, because there's no championship for this. It's just really honour and just a bit of fun for the drivers, but everybody's been driving extremely well, and there's been no silly driving this race, which has been really good to see.
Yeah, patience. It's good to see everyone has patience tonight and just taking their time, and it's really paid off.
It has, yeah. And I
see the racing line starting to move up the track a bit, like I predicted it might, Carl. And I just see that Bruce Smith is disconnected from the server.
We've lost Bruce Smith. Oh, that is a terrible shame. Real big loss to the race there, Bruce Smith. That's really going to help Jason Martin out and give him a good chance. That is a real shame, though, to lose Bruce Smith. He was having a fantastic race and fantastic fight with Jason Martin. Unfortunately, a technical issue, which of course can happen with online iRacing. Of course, you don't have things like your engines exploding or your gearbox is failing that much. You do have things like your internet cutting out or things like that, and that's one of those weird little quirks of this kind of racing, I guess, is you don't have the failures of the car, but you have the failures of your computers and the internet. So a real shame to lose Bruce Smith. That is an absolute crying shame there.
Yeah, I'm somewhat confused as to what happened, actually, because he actually pulled into the pits and then just left. I went back, I couldn't see an incident where the car was damaged, or I don't know what happened, to be honest.
Oh, that's a real shame. Something we'll have to maybe look at after the race, or hopefully we'll get some information on it sometime as we go. But a real shame there to lose Bruce Smith. You know, another thing that of course can happen is, you know, real life issues can come up. You know, little things like
yes.
That can be an issue, and you know, when you're in a race car it's a bit different because you're sort of in almost a Faraday cage. You just can't really talk to the outside world. The only person you can hear is your race engineer, and you don't have things like children or animals that cause mischief in the house, or things like that you need to go look after. So that can absolutely be a reason for a disconnect sometimes. Even things like a bit of an upset stomach sometimes, of course, can be a problem with this kind of racing. Whereas in the real world, you generally leave it to your poor race engineers after the race to clean up that kind of issue.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was just looking through the top 5 here, and the top 3 are basically, well, they're running individually and out in clean air, and then you go back to 4th and 5th, Matthew Kloet and Edward Foster, and they're having a good old battle here. Edward's sort of dropping back a bit now, but it's a bit different to the open air racing that the other guys have got, and they're probably slowing themselves down by doing it.
Yeah, they're definitely a bit slower than the rest of the field. Just looking at the lap times, they're setting on average around about a 30.6, whereas the rest of the field is on around about a 30.2. So you've got Jason Martin on a 30.2, Matt Danson on a 30.3, Ashley Lear on a 30.2, Matthew Kloet on a 30.6, and Edward Foster on a 30.5. So definitely sort of costing themselves a little bit of time here with the racing they're doing. But again, of course, at the moment, it's a bit of probably putting a bit of a smile on both their faces to have such good racing.
Yeah, no, they'll be enjoying it. I know that for a fact. And as we see, Matthew Kloet starting to pull a bit of a lead out on Edward Foster there. So where are we at? 124 laps, Carl.
Well, 125 laps now, just as Jason Martin crossed the line. So we've only got 75 laps left. We've been green for these 125 laps, which is pretty outstanding, really. If this was a general Thursday Night Thunder race or truck or K&N series race, we would be finished now, wouldn't we?
Oh yeah, we would, and you'd probably have average of 1 or 2 cautions in those 100 laps as well.
Yes, that's it. It's, to have such a green flag race is just outstanding. Of course, one of the things I'm just thinking of here is Charlotte. Does it have full floodlighting? Because that's one of the things I was just having a bit of a ponder on, because I can never remember.
Full floodlighting?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, beautiful. Well, that will be good then, because of course one of the things will be, of course, they're going to start to need to actually get lights on the track now, because the night sky is really pulling in. I've just jumped on board with Matt Danson here, and you can just see the clouds in the night sky is really starting to get quite dark.
Yeah, all the lights are on at the circuit here. It's got to start to wonder about fatigue at this stage of the race as well. Where a lot of the drivers, as you said, the race would be over now.
Yeah.
So, and most of those drivers are quite fatigued at the end of those races. So we're only just over halfway, nearing 3/4 of the way of this race.
Well, we've almost got another race in say, the Thursday Night Thunder series. We've almost got a whole another race to run right now. You know, that's the thing, is it's such a long race, this one. Fatigue is definitely going to set in, and people are going to start making mistakes. It's very easy to make a mistake. You know, things like cramps and stuff like that can set in on arms. As silly as it sounds to possibly some of our listeners and people that are watching, fatigue and just strain on the body is immense in these races, because there's so much mental strength you need to be racing this long. You really do struggle when you get to this stage. Even with real racing, of course, you do have the G-force to worry about, but pretty much all these drivers are using steering wheels that actually have full force feedback on them. So they're not light, easy steering wheels to turn. They have a lot of weight to turn on them. You're constantly feeling the judder. You're constantly feeling the weight. And that puts a lot of strain on the arms. And it's one of those things that you do tend to forget that is hard on one of these races. Is you do need to be actually a little bit physically fit. And you need to actually have a bit of physical ability to actually continue a race past this sort of 100 lap mark.
Also, the fatigue affects your reaction times. So you miss that turn-in mark or braking mark by just half a second or even less, and it can be the end of your race.
It's easily done, and look, we've all done it. Everybody that has raced has done it, be it in the real world or online racing. When you're having a long race, it's so easy just to you get into such a habit as well. That's one of the problems people have too, is you've got to sort of almost break the habit, especially in a long green race like this. You've not got a time to sort of relax a little bit. You can't go and grab your drinks bottle. You can't take your hands off the steering wheel and have a bit of a stretch on the straight. That's all problems. But the turn-in markers and things like that, the track is evolving right now. The track is changing with all the debris on the track, with all the tyre rubber. It's going to start having a different feel to it. And you may find that the line that you used 10 laps ago no longer works. So you've got to evolve with that. So the best drivers are people that evolve from the way the track evolves, basically.
And exactly like you said, the best drivers, and yeah, well, as we know, there's some that are freaks out there, and they thrive on these conditions. They thrive on the track changing and being different.
Yes, and you know, it's just like the real sport itself, the real world races. You have these drivers that are just so sometimes super fit and just capable of just doing thousands of laps without having any trouble, and it is just, you look at them and you just go, they're freaks, and they're freakish in their nature. Fernando Alonso is one of those drivers that is just freakishly amazing at keeping the pace of a car through the whole race. You watch him race, and especially at Indy last year, or was it, or the year before, with his race, he was so good. He was just on pace all lap, and every lap he was setting similar lap times, even when his tyres were starting to go away, because he could just feel a way to get the car a little bit different, take a different line, and just keep speed going. And a lot of the drivers, people like Jason Martin, for instance, Matt Danson, they both have that ability. They're both very good at this long run sort of capability. They're both very good at saving tyres, saving fuel, and just adapting to a changing track.
Yeah, it's because on the long run, you get that consistency. You can build up a pattern, and it's repetitive. So the more and more you do something, the better you get at it. So the more green laps you have, the better. Well, a lot of guys do. Unfortunately, that's where the fatigue comes in. But that also shines a light on those who can push through that and excel to the next level.
Yeah, and we're going to see that tonight. One of the things that we could see, as well as if we do get a yellow caution period anytime now, is people making mistakes on the restart, because they've been so used to this constant pace, because they've been so used to this constant feel of the race. Having to restart the car, going back to that sort of situation, may just throw them out of their rhythm slightly, and what we might get is a yellow breeding a yellow, which is often the case. Is, you know, when you get one yellow flag period, when you get one full course caution, a second one is usually to follow. So that's something we could be in danger of right now. Hopefully we don't see it. It would be lovely to see this race run green all the way, but I'm sure the drivers would love to get a yellow flag anytime soon.
Yeah, and that's part of the type of racing it is. These cars do well at high speeds, and when you have a long green flag period like this, and you have to go down to a much less speed, the car just handles so much differently.
Yes, and we're actually starting to see Martin actually lapping the field now. We're getting cars getting a lap down on the green flag. Scurlock is currently the first car on a lap down, but Darren McKenzie's being caught at a relatively quick pace by Jason Martin, so he may be in trouble of going a lap down soon as well. And this is something else that people have to try their best not to do, because if you do go a lap down, at least stay by the leader and be the first car on a lap down, of course, because that way you're going to get the lucky dog. You're going to get your lap back, basically. So it's now in those situations when you do become a lap down, you're actually racing to try and be the first of the people who are a lap down, trying to really get those positions or change your strategy up so you can get back on the lead lap. Again, it just completely changes the whole outcome of the race.
Yeah, it does. And look, you get this with a lot of green flag racing. Because you have staggered pit stops and that they're not all coming into pit under caution, you're having different strategies and different people throughout the field and different laps down.
We are, and as we speak, I just saw somebody pulling into the pit road. Not sure who it was. I'm just trying to have a look, see who we got. So we got Danny G, Daniel Grzeszkiewicz. Never pronounce his last name, so we'll just call him Danny G. He's just come into the pits, and he was one of those cars that was a lap down. He's going to fall to about 2 laps down now, but he is on fresh tyres with a full fuel load, so he might start catching on the rest of the cars that he was fighting with. So this might be a good move for Danny G, but everybody's going to have to start looking at pitting soon, because they're currently on a stint that's gone around about, I'd say, 40 laps. They're around about 44 laps. I think everybody's stacked on around about lap 100, between about lap 95 to lap 105. So everybody's going to be starting to look at coming into the pits soon. But of course, people are going to want to hold out there, especially those people that are people like Michael Scurlock, who's the first car a lap down. They're going to want to hold out there a little bit and see if they can get that yellow to try and get back on the lead lap of the race and try and get back in contention.
Yeah, it looks like we've got 40 to 50 lap stints here on these tyres. Anywhere between those times, those lap periods looks good. So that gives us 4 sets of tyres for this race.
Yes, and we will, if we do see a caution towards the, I'd say you're around about lap 160, lap 170, we will see everybody dash into the pits again and put a fresh set of boots on. But this could well be everybody's last stop now. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, if we stay green, it's going to be a dash to the end. And a lot will come down to strategy, especially if we don't end up with a caution.
We could see some drivers really struggling on fuel, possibly, for this last stint of the race. It depends on their fuel loads, but if they are running around about 50 laps of fuel for the race, especially under green, if they're running around about 50 to 49 laps, then we could see drivers just being on the edge of the fuel tank for that last little bit of race.
Yeah, they might have to come in and just do a splash and dash. And that's where I think a lot of drivers do enjoy the odd caution. It really does help out their race strategy.
It does, and a lot of actual teams do tend to actually make their race strategy around caution. Having this race run so long green, we're going to really see a lot of people struggling to get sort of with their strategy. Basically, it's going to be an interesting little fight for people and see how they do. It's going to be interesting to see if Danny G can actually make it to the end on this last pit stop. He's currently sitting in 8th position, just behind Matthew Kloet. So he has gained up some really good positions. He's gained on Riley Curtis and Stephen Williams, I believe. So he's got up a few good positions, but he is currently 3 laps down. So he's going to really need to work hard to get back up there. Now, Edward Foster has actually pulled to the pits now, and Michael Scurlock's just come in behind him, so Edward Foster's the first of those real top runners to pit. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does, and see how long everybody stays out in the front now.
Yeah, and we've got Ashley Lear and just running there behind Matthew Danson, and I'm not sure if he's gaining on him.
No, we have had Sorry, I'm just...
Matt Danson pulls into the pits now.
yeah.
Matthew Danson has pulled into the pits now.
Ah, there he is. Sorry, I just lost Jason Martin on my timing sheet. Sorry about that. I was just struggling to find Jason Martin. So Jason Martin is currently in third place.
Yeah.
So he has pitted.
Yes.
So he's going to be around about a lap. Sort of his tyre's going to be a lap older than the Danson and Lear, of course. But that's not going to make too much difference.
Look, these conditions are playing out perfectly for Jason. He would probably prefer not to get a caution here because the pace he has in this car tonight, he will be able to run down Ashley, Lear and Matt Danson and extend the lead. So he would be praying that he doesn't get a caution. So
yeah, if he gets a caution, it could absolutely ruin his race. The current race that he's had has just been phenomenal pace. And a caution could really put an end to his race as we go along.
Yeah, like I said, it slows everything down and groups them all up and unsettles the drivers. So I'm sure it's something he would rather not have right now.
Yes, that's it. And just as we're watching there, Stephen Williams just got a little bit out of shape. He just had a bit of a wiggle as Edward Foster was passing him, and I'm sure Edward Foster would have preferred him not to have that wiggle. Edward's just racing now to keep on the lead lap. He's got Jason Martin sitting behind him. He's got Stephen Williams just blocking himself and Martin. So Foster's really going to have to try and race hard to stay ahead of Martin at the moment because, again, he doesn't want to be that car that falls a lap down and then is behind, say, Matthew Kloet, who then would get the free pass to get back on the lead lap. So he's really going to be racing hard to try and keep on that lead lap. But with this amount of green flag racing, it's very hard to stay on the lead lap. When you are, we're not talking a huge amount of time that these guys are slower. As we saw in qualifying, these guys were not slow at all. But when you're around about half a second a lap slower, quarter of a second a lap slower, these long races, getting to 155 laps, really is going to change the... really going to bake it so people can start lapping you, and especially with the lack of yellow flags we've had, it's not had a chance to really bunch up the pack.
And then you've got different tyre lives and different fuel loads, so every car is different that is on the track. That's what green flag racing does, and it makes it exciting because it makes basically you've got two cars racing each other that could be different compared to caution flags. Everyone hits same fuel loads, same tyre life, so I think this really makes it more exciting.
It is going to make it very exciting, and I'm just looking on board with Jason Martin, our leader at the moment, and you can just see the sky is absolutely black now. We have got nighttime conditions for this race, so again that's going to be something that's going to change for the drivers. One of the things when you actually do change from day to night is it can sometimes play a little bit of trick with your eye. It's a problem that sometimes endurance drivers have, is just that change from daylight to nighttime. It can really make the vision a little bit different because shadows are a little bit different. The way the track looks is a little bit different. And with iRacing now having that movement of weather and the change of light conditions, it means that you're not going to be able to pick up your braking point or your turning point by the position of, say, a shadow or certain points of the track. So it will be interesting to see if anybody starts slowing down because of that, or if they all stay relatively on pace.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know if, how many drivers had to change their driving style, changing the braking markers, their turning markers, due to the update to the new day-night transition.
Yeah, I am looking forward to actually chatting to a couple of drivers after the race in the green room, just to ask him about that, because it's something that we've not really had this year in ANZCAR. We had the change come for the last couple of, I think it was the last race of the truck series, but it didn't really cause much of a change in the actual track or conditions. It wasn't that dark. Right now we actually see Edward Foster and Jason Martin racing a little bit. Edward's going to try his best to keep Martin behind him. Obviously he does not want to fall a lap down.
No, and Jason's just gone higher there, and was that Michael Scurlock running behind?
That would be Stephen Williams.
Stephen Williams, yes.
So yeah, we've got the Stephen Williams, the lapped car between Foster and Martin. But yeah, Martin did just run a bit wide there and just lost a fair bit of time, which is good for Foster. And we've got Matthew Kloet just right ahead of Foster at the moment. So we've got a really good race coming up here with Foster and Kloet.
Yeah, we do have Michael Scurlock in there, in the mix.
Oh, sorry, it is Scurlock. Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, my mistake there. Stephen Williams was there a little bit before, but yeah. So we've got a really good race here for fourth, fifth, and sixth at the moment. So all very fast cars, all very racy, and all trying their best to stay on the lead lap now.
Yeah, and then, well, you've literally got behind those three cars first place. So
yes,
that would be putting pressure on them. A lot going through their mind right now, and what are we coming on to lap 163? Yeah,
163 laps now. So we've got 38 laps remaining, 37 laps now, and it's been a relatively, as I say, the caution-free race so far. We've only had 7 lead changes, and that was really just between Martin and Bruce Smith early on, and a couple of changes in the pit stops. But it's been a very, very clean race for people.
And Scurlock's managed to get past Matthew Kloet there.
Yes, and Foster's actually gotten away from them both and is pulling a great gap from them. He's all of a sudden just got a great boost of speed, it seems.
Yeah, he's starting to break away while Michael Scurlock and Matthew Kloet battle Jason Martin there. Edward's using this to his advantage.
Yes, and really using it to his advantage. Of course, one of the big things in oval and NASCAR racing is you don't have to move over for somebody when there's a blue flag. You don't have to let the leader through.
It's different to road.
It is all about racing. It's for the leader to pass you, not for you to let the leader pass.
No, and it's I guess because you're not slowing down and varying your speed to great difference, it's a bit easier to deal with lap traffic here in NASCAR.
It is, yeah. It's one of the things with lap traffic is when you're on road, it can be quite difficult because you do get that blue flag coming out and you need to let the driver pass in a set time. And you can sort of sometimes get caught in a really awkward position where you have to slow down at a spot that's awkward for the person behind you, and it can sometimes cause wrecks. In all honesty, I think the approach of the oval racing of basically it's your job to pass the car that's being lapped is a much better option, and it causes less problems as well. You do generally get less wrecks from it because these guys are just racing each other, and it's pure racing.
It is, and look, it does cause issues on road. I guess with oval here, you're mainly racing packs, so you're racing bumper to bumper as it is. So passing a car that's a little bit slower isn't really a big deal. You know, it's just style of racing that I don't know gives you that extra edge.
Yes, and as we see, actually, Scurlock's just catching Foster at a great bit of speed there. I do wonder if maybe Foster just used up a little bit of his tyre life, just trying to pull up a bit of gap there. But Scurlock seems to have the real pace now on Foster, and is just looking to make a move on him. He goes down on the inside line, and looks like he's going to get this pass done. We'll see how it pans out for him. He's just fallen in behind. Foster's fallen down to the lower line. He's got a lap car on the high line at the moment, which is going to hurt Scurlock a little bit. It's actually one of Foster's teammates, so he's going to try his best to help Edward as much as he can. Not much he could do there, though, unfortunately. So really good racing between Foster and Scurlock at the moment, and it looks like Scurlock's got the inside line again on, I think it's turn 2. But Foster just has that little bit of extra speed on the exit. So as we come through to the start-finish, just a little kink here. We'll see if Scurlock can get on the inside. He's trying his best, but Foster is holding that outside line well.
What I would like to inquire about is fuel loads. Has anyone taken a risk and chucked in a little bit less fuel, you know? Like Michael Scurlock, maybe. He just seems like he's got a little bit more pace. And is that due to maybe having a little bit less fuel?
Yes.
Which then throws into the equation, does he have enough to get to the end?
Well, that's it. Has anyone rolled the dice that we are going to get a caution? We have got a relatively small field now. I think we've only got 12 cars running on the track, so there's not many cars to actually cause a caution. So if you did roll the dice for that fuel load and just trying to gamble on a caution, I think you might be out of luck today, because everybody's relatively far apart. There's not many people close together, and that usually means that you're not going to get many yellows.
No, look, I think we'll stay green here to the end of the race, and these guys know what they're doing. I'm sure they would have factored it in.
Brilliant blocking just by Foster there. He's just manoeuvring the car into the perfect spots, and Scurlock's definitely got a faster car, but Foster is just able to manoeuvre the car and just put it on the awkward part of the line, so Scurlock just can't get past. If Scurlock tries, he's going to rub so much speed off his car, he's going to lose positions. So really good racing here by the two of them.
Yeah, this comes down to patience. It's Michael could obviously see that, look, even though he has the quicker car, he can't get past Edward, because Edward is just driving his racing line and driving that car well.
And this is where frustration can set in. Now, for Michael Scurlock, I doubt he's going to fall to that sort of red mist, because he's been very persistent and patient over the year. But sometimes it can really frustrate you being behind a car, just seeing the rear of that car and seeing it just sitting in that line. It just means you can't get past. You get really frustrated and you want to make a lunge. And that's where accidents can happen.
Yeah, especially as the laps are counting down. You're getting less and less laps to make the move that you need to, and it looks like he's staying higher here behind Edward, as if he's going to try and take a different line. No, he's going low again.
Yep, he's fallen to the low side, and he's actually got a better run this time. It looks like he's going to make it past. He's got a really good drive there, and it looks like he might have got the move done. But Foster's on that outside line, which seems to be quicker at the moment. So Foster's managing to fight back, and he has got back in front of Scurlock.
Yeah, it looks like Michael had the pace coming into turn 1, but Edward just powered out of turn 2 down coming turn 3, and you got to wonder, what is Michael Scurlock thinking? He's got what, 23 laps to go.
Yeah, he is running out of laps to do this, and he's running out of options to go. And this is letting Darren McKenzie catch up to them as well. Darren McKenzie's just caught up extremely well, because these two are battling very hard. McKenzie in the 75 is now right on the back of these two fighting. What we might do is just jump onto the onboard of McKenzie and just see from his point of view this fight going on between Scurlock and Foster. We can also just see the... Let me just turn... we can see McKenzie's arms moving around on the steering wheel. The car is a pig to drive at the moment. He's really struggling with grip by the looks of things. That's because those tyres are just starting to get worn. And Scurlock again down on that inside line, but Foster seems to have the extra bit of speed on that outside that just gives him a little bit more power. Obviously a little bit more grip on that outside line, so he's able to get a bit of better drive onto the straights, which means that Scurlock just can't do anything to him. And yeah, we are really seeing... Sorry, we just dropped out there. Sorry about that, just dropped out there. My stupid Discord decided I was AFK and decided to kick me out because it's been such a long race. Sorry about that.
That's all good, mate. We were kicking along.
Good, yeah. And just watching from McKenzie here, you can just see that Foster has that high line is just working so much better. And McKenzie's just sitting here rubbing his hands together with glee because these guys are really scrubbing their tyres up, causing themselves a little bit more problems, and McKenzie might just have that little bit more speed when it comes to it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when these guys get to the battle.
Yeah, well, they're always going to be working harder when you're trying to make a pass like that, and McKenzie's sitting back. He could just use the momentum with those two fighting for this position and pretty much just drive around the top of him if he has that line.
Yes, and that's it. McKenzie can watch where these guys are sitting every lap, and then he can plan his attack. The other thing as well is these two are focusing on each other. They might not be focused on McKenzie. And what can happen in this situation is you focus on the car in front and behind you, but not the car that's behind both of you. And that third car can really throw a spanner in the works because you think you've made the move on, say, Foster, and then all of a sudden McKenzie goes flying past you, you lose one spot, and then all of a sudden Foster comes up behind you as well, and you lose 2 spots, and you end up 2 spots down, and you were sitting pretty with sort of 5th place.
Yeah, he's in an excellent position here, and I've just been watching him, and he's just getting closer and closer. He's mirroring Edward Foster's line, so he's getting the draft from Edward. So Edward's pulling him around as well, and that will be, as you can see, he's getting closer.
He is, and he's just getting underneath. He's just getting underneath Scurlock now. So McKenzie's really putting himself into the battle now. He's making his move on this fight, and he has got past Scurlock. He's on the lower line, but it looks like he's just got a little bit of better drive. Scurlock's losing a little bit of speed. You can just see that McKenzie just has so much more speed when he goes past him, and Scurlock has lost that position. So McKenzie driving really well here. Darren McKenzie just pulling a beauty out there to get past Scurlock.
It's like it's as if Scurlock made a small mistake,
and that can that's something that can absolutely happen in this situation because you're so busy fighting with the car ahead of you, you don't notice the car behind you. All of a sudden you glance up to your mirror and you notice there's a car right behind you. You sort of kink your car a little bit and make that slight mistake, and all of a sudden you've got a car flying past you.
Oh, for sure. It's pressure alert big time, you know. You've got to really know how to keep you cool when it gets to this part of the race.
That's it. And just as that battle softens off a little bit, I'm just going to jump towards Jason Martin because he's been leading this race, and the trouble with Jason is he doesn't get talked about much because he generally leads a race and we forget about him. So I'll just jump to him to give him a little bit of camera time, but it does look like McKenzie is trying to make a move on Foster now, so I'm going to jump back to that fight.
Yeah, it's when you're that good that the camera gets taken off you because you're in the lead that much. Look, proud to be able to drive like that. Got to give Jason Martin the full credit he deserves.
That's it. It's awkward for for any sponsors that go on Jason Martin, because he doesn't get much camera time, unfortunately, because he's always too far ahead. So maybe Jason has to add a little bit of ballast to his car to try and slow down a little bit and maybe get a bit more camera time.
Either that or start adding a handicap.
We'll call it the Jason Martin rule. A big lump of lead in the car. So Darren McKenzie is really catching up on Foster now, and the other thing that was happening with that battle between Scurlock and Foster was it was costing themselves tyre degradation, and McKenzie was just sitting back there and not really scrubbing his tyres much. He's watched Foster's line. He now knows the spot to pounce on Foster, and it looks like he's going to make a try for it, although Foster is still holding that outside line and still has that extra bit of grip and holds that extra bit of speed there. McKenzie is really putting up a great battle now, and Foster moves down and just cuts him off just as he was getting a decent run. He moves back up track, and McKenzie again is trying to get that inside line, but it just isn't fast enough at the moment. The high line is definitely where the speed lies.
Yeah, he definitely used his position to advantage, sitting back where he was, watching Scurlock and Foster battle it out. Not using any more tyres or fuel, even using less fuel and less tyres, because just sitting that draft. And now he's battling Foster, and he's in a prime position to take this position away from Edward. He
is, yeah. He's really doing well, and it's really good battle at the moment. I guess another person we haven't talked about is actually one of two people. It's Ashley Lear and Matt Danson. They're both sitting there in second and third, respectively, and they've just done a fantastic job. They've had a really clean race. They're not really done much in the later stage of the races, but earlier on they were really on the pace and really fighting for positions. So another great job by those two. McKenzie again just tries for that inside line, but it just isn't working for him.
Yeah, and look, it has been an unusual race. We might normally get someone like Jason Martin or the leader push out to a bit of a gap, but normally have a quite large pack in second onwards. But those guys in the top three have had basically nothing but clean air racing tonight.
Yeah, it's been a very unusual race, but a very enjoyable one at that. You know, there's been some real hard racing going on, and Darren McKenzie makes a bit of a mistake there. He was actually trying to go for the high line, and now he's going to lose position to Michael Scurlock by the looks of it. But he does, I think he just tapped Scurlock possibly. Scurlock maybe made a defensive move. Just trying to avoid a crash there. But it did look like there was possibly contact between himself and McKenzie, because Scurlock did just go down the track quite quickly. So I'm not sure what happened there, but Scurlock has fallen out of the battle. McKenzie is a little bit further away from Foster now, so it gives Foster a chance to breathe. So while that's happening, I'll just hop towards Ashley Lear, who is having a pretty peaceful race now. He's about 3 seconds behind Matt Danson, who's in second place. And
sorry, they come.
And Matt Danson is around about 11 seconds behind Jason Martin. So they're having a bit of a lonely race, the top three. There's not really much for them to do at the moment.
No, and what have we got? We've got 5 laps to go. But it's interesting, that little battle we saw with McKenzie and Scurlock. Those small mistakes we're talking about in this late stage of the race. It's that fatigue, I reckon, mate.
It could well be, and it can absolutely start setting in. And, you know, look, definitely feeling it as a commentator now. I'm feeling a bit of fatigue myself, but when you're racing, it's even more, because there's so much more you've got the adrenaline pumping and everything like that. So it's settled down a bit now, and everybody's a little bit less boisterous, but with 3 laps to go, they're really going to have to start pushing hard, because this is for a top 5 finish. It does look like Scurlock has dropped back a bit too far to actually fight for the sort of 5th and 4th place position, the best of the rest, I'd say. You know, just off the sort of podium positions. Looks like without any trouble or any issues, Jason Martin, Matt Danson and Ashley Lear have their places sewn up, but the real battle is looking to be 4th and 5th place at the moment.
Yeah, look, I should have been in bed hours ago, so I don't know how I'd be going racing a car around Charlotte International Raceway. It's they'd be very tired right now, and with 2 laps to go. Can McKenzie get it done on Foster, you think, there, Carl?
I don't think he can. The only way he's going to do it is making a great big lunge, which he's just done, and he's just lost himself a little bit of speed, possibly. So McKenzie is going to have to settle for 5th place by the looks of it, because Jason Martin is coming around, and he is going to pass the line. He's just doing a little bit of skidding as he comes around for that last lap, just giving us a little bit of a show with a little bit of drifting, and he crosses the line and takes the win. A fantastic victory for Jason Martin. So just quickly jump back, and yeah, Edward Foster has secured the 4th place by the looks of things. Darren McKenzie can't do anything. He's just a bit too far off the pace. Just a bit too far off now, and Foster has taken it. So a fantastic win there for Jason Martin, giving us a great show with that drifting. It's been a fantastic season for Jason, our Thursday Night Thunder champion. Also, of course, Michael Scurlock having the K&N and Truck Series championship victories. Just a fantastic year for them, and for the series itself. So great to see. So,
no, definitely, it was a great race tonight, Carl.
It was. Everyone drove their best tonight, and were on their best behaviour as well. Really, really good race, and just the fact we've managed to keep it green for 200 laps, I don't think anyone expected that.
No, that probably was the last thing everyone expected. But look, it just showed the professionalism of everyone out there tonight. And they did what they had to do to get it done.
They did, and Jason Martin just showing that he is just that little bit faster than everybody else. He's just got that speed, and it's very hard to beat him. He just has that ability to just get that extra bit of speed in there, especially in qualifying and stuff like that, and just get those wins, and it's very hard to beat him. Okay, yeah. What we will do now is we will just go through the results. So, we'll just go through the top 10. If you'd like to go through the top 10 for me, please, Tristo.
Yeah, sure, Carl, sure. And look, Jason, we'll start from 10, hey? We'll start from 10 tonight?
Yeah, we'll go 10 down.
Alright, we got Danny G coming in 10th position, then Stephen Williams running in 9th, Riley Curtis in 8th, in 7th we have Matthew Kloet, 6th Michael Scurlock, and then 5th Darren McKenzie. We had quite a few good battles there, and then 4th Edward Foster, he was involved in that battle as well. Ashley Lear in 3rd, Matthew Danson in 2nd, and Jason Martin taking home the win in 1st.
Yes, and what we'll do is we'll just actually grab Jason. He's just in the green room, and I'm just going to grab him over and have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, no, definitely well deserved.
Jason Martin, the winner of the All-Star race. How are you going? It's Carl Withy here.
Very good, thanks, Carl. Always good after a win.
Yeah, I seem to be speaking to you a lot after races these days. It seems to be a common occurrence. Fantastic result for yourself there. How was it for you driving tonight?
To be honest, I got a bit bored at the end there, and the last 25 laps, I was really struggling to hang on to it. I was starting to zone out a bit.
Yes, fatigue looks to be a big issue for a lot of people, and just that sort of boredom factor for yourself, because you just really did have that race sewn up. Unfortunately, when we did lose Bruce Smith through some form of connection issue, it did mean your race sort of fizzled out a little bit. Matt Danson and Ashley Lear were sort of holding on to you, but they weren't able to catch you very much. 200 laps. You must be very tired.
Oh, I'm absolutely knackered. And for about the last 100 laps, I didn't have a drink, so yeah, pretty hot and sweaty.
That's what I wanted to ask you, actually, is with this race being green for 200 laps, not a chance for you guys to rest, to really take your hands off the wheel or really take a moment to relax other than the pit stops, I guess. Was that really hard for you?
Yeah, sure was. I would have loved a yellow.
I think a lot of people were praying for a yellow tonight. Tristo, any words for Jason Martin tonight?
Look, great win there, Jason. Legendary drive, mate. Like I was saying to Carl, it would have been tough there at the end. Well done, that's all I can say.
Thanks, mate.
And it's a great way to top off the season for you as well, I guess. Another win in the books. Fantastic job. Yeah, just a really good season. And obviously, just a look back on the season itself, you've had a really good season, really strong season in trucks as well as, of course, Thunder, where you got the victory. Are you looking forward to next year?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it, and I'm going to have a nice shiny new paint job, so that'll be something to look for.
That would be great. Are you changing from the traditional purple?
Nah, I got to keep the purple. That's what makes me go quick.
That is good, because if you change from that, I might have had trouble spotting you. Would you like to give a shout out to anyone tonight, Jason?
I just got to thank Daniel for the putting on the All-Star event, and ANZCAR for the league, and Performance e-streaming for the broadcast. It would have been a long one.
I went through 2 drinks bottles tonight. I'll let you know that, and I think my voice is going to die after this, but thank you so much for that, Jason.
No worries, mate. See yous.
Catch you, mate.
Okay, well, with that, what we might do is grab in our 4th place, Edward Foster. Edward Foster, Carl Withy here for Performance e-streaming. How are you going?
G'day, fellas. Yeah, not too bad.
That's good to hear. You sound pretty fresh after that.
Oh yeah, it wasn't too bad at all. It was nice to get a run in caution free. I think maybe it would have been an idea to have a couple of competition cautions in with 2020 hindsight. But yeah, anyway, it ran caution free. Excellent driving from everyone. So yeah, really enjoyable. Yeah,
the driving standards were outstanding tonight, and there was some fantastic battles. We were watching you for a lot of the race because you had a fair few fights on the track, especially with Scurlock and McKenzie towards the end there.
Yeah, it was one of those where, I mean, for a lot of time I was actually battling Matty Kloet earlier on in the race, and he had slightly better tyre life than I did, but I sort of found out as the race went on that there was definitely something to be said for kind of trying to hold the guys behind you, hold them down that low line and make them burn their tyres off. And I think that's what happened to Matt, because he didn't seem to have the tyre life advantage on me that he had early on. After kind of being on the low line for a while, I used the same technique with Scurlock, and then McKenzie. It was just a case of just trying to get them to burn their tyres off and save mine as much as possible, and in the end it worked out. Yeah, we did notice your defensive driving was really on point tonight. You really put on a great show of defensive driving, and was pretty much perfect tutorial stuff for people in the future there. When you're as slow as me, mate, you get a lot of practice defending, so...
Well, I was saying in the race a little bit, I have stared at the rear of your car many times, and it's always frustrating.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, it was yeah. Look, just one of those that just trying to put them in a bit of a compromised position. But I mean, credit to all 3 of them, Scurlock, McKenzie, and Kloet. I mean, they were super clean, and I mean, it must have been massively frustrating for those guys behind, knowing that they had a bit of a pace advantage and they need to use it and so on. But I mean, we never so much as traded paint, not with any of them. And yeah, it's a good shout out to those guys as well, because it was just absolutely first class driving from everyone I encountered, especially those three. And I hope they enjoyed themselves too, because I guess that kind of thing is what it's all about.
Yeah, actually, one thing I wanted to talk about with pace advantage was actually the first round of pit stops, you stopping a little bit earlier than everybody else. We noticed that it really did give you a great pace advantage at the start, but then as soon as everybody came out on the fresher tyres, it must have been very hard to try and keep pace with them.
Yeah, I mean, trying to keep pace with the guys in front of me is what caused me to burn my tyres off in the first place. So I thought I had definitely burned them off. By the time Ash got to me and got past, I'd definitely burned the tyres off. So I thought may try an undercut, see how that works. So I pitted quite early. And of course, yeah, as you say, that gives you the pace advantage, but you suffer later on in the stint. But I think nobody thought that we were going to go so long without a caution. So I'm thinking, okay, let's take that pace advantage. Maybe then, in about 20 laps time, a caution will come out and there'll be a net gain there. So in the end, we didn't get that caution. So I had to, of course, pay my debt at the end of the stint.
Yes, that's it. So Tristo, just anything for Edward Foster?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, Edward, was fuel ever going to be a factor? We saw people hitting between, say, lap 40, 50. That was mainly for tyres. Was fuel ever going to be a factor in this race, do you believe?
Well, I know that Riley got home with only point something of a litre left in the tank. So it really depended on how you structured the first part of the race as to whether or not you're going to wind up with... needing to stop for fuel at the end. I know Danny G had to pit right in the end with a couple of laps to go to put a splash in as well. So yeah, it really depended what kind of strategy you put yourself on early. I kind of became conscious of it about a third of the way through the race that, okay, look, we're staying green for the moment. We're going to have to start thinking about fuel and maybe lengthening these stints to get me back on schedule for a 3-stop strategy, so I didn't have to stop again. So ran quite a long second stint because of that, and a bit of a longer third stint as well, just because just wanted to make sure that we got home on fuel. Didn't want fuel to be an issue at the end of the race. I think I finished with about 4 laps worth in the tank. So for me, no, it wasn't an issue, but yeah, it all depended on what you did earlier on.
Awesome. Well, it was a great race, mate, and good position there in 4th place. So well done. Great racing to everyone tonight.
Thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks everyone for sticking with us. Of course, this is the last race for ANZCAR in 2018, so it's caps off a great year for us. We'll come back bigger and better next year.
Now, before you wrap up there, Edward, I just wanted to say, with the race, being the first race that we've really had in ANZCAR that has gone from daylight to nighttime, did you find that to be anything different?
Definitely. The track changed a lot during the race. It was a very difficult car to drive in the sun. As soon as the sun started to set and the electric lights came on, it was much nicer, much nicer all round actually. So yes, it did make quite a significant difference.
That is great to hear. That's going to be good for future races for the series, I'm sure. So just last of all, of course, just shout outs and all of those usual things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, being the end of the year now, just want to, of course, shout out to the guys that help organise this league with us, Roger, Clarke and Danny G, because they put in a massive amount of work behind the scenes, as well as all you guys who give us a hand on the broadcast side as well at Performance E-Streaming, and of course, my teammates there at Blokes Advice Racing, Blokes Advice for coming on board with the cars as well. Hopefully, we're going to have some other sponsors join us in the new year, which will be great. But yeah, watch this space.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Edward. I hope you have a good night, good Christmas and a good New Year.
You too, and same to everyone out there. Thank you.
Okay, and what we'll do now is we'll just grab the organiser of the race, Danny G, over just for a quick chat before we wrap up for the evening. Danny G, how's it going? Carl Wither here, Performance E-Streaming with Tristo. How are you tonight?
Yeah, not too bad, guys. How are you fellas?
A little bit tired after that. It was a bit of a long race, in all honesty, and especially with a green race as well. How were you faring after such a long green flag period?
Oh, not too bad. I mean, my left wrist is a little bit sore, but I mean, I was a bit suspect on my internet. It's been playing up lately, so I decided to start last. And I expected a caution flag, and so I played the pit strategy at the start to sort of pit early, and the caution never came out, and I was always chasing my tail from that point on. So come 10th. I was pretty happy to come 10th. But yeah, pretty hard race.
Yeah, congratulations on the 10th.
It is.
And congratulations on putting on a great race as well. Organising this race must have been a very tricky thing to get going, as we've seen a little bit of, but it looks like you put on a great event as well, so thank you so much for that. Just wanted to talk to you about I talked to Edward Foster a little bit about it, but the day to night cycle, how did it affect you driving?
Yeah, that was the first time I've seen it, and it was really cool. Like when I set this race up, I sort of tried to make it realistic, where we would practice in the day or afternoon. It would sort of transition into night. And for a while there, I thought it's not going to happen because we're just going to get a green flag run, but it did happen. And yeah, I think the group definitely did sort of move around. Like I noticed after every pit stop on 4 fresh tyres, it was just different. Like I couldn't race where I was racing sort of the previous cycle. So I had to chase myself around. I damaged the car up a little bit, so. Not too sure how much effect that played, but yeah, it definitely did change.
Oh, that is good to hear. It's good to hear as well for the future, because I do look forward to next year. We'll hopefully be able to play with this a little bit more. So Tristo, any words for Danny G for tonight?
Look, just want to congratulate you on a well-run night, mate. And look, 10th position, starting from 19th, you've done well. So be happy, mate. It's a good night. Great watching you all race. 200 green flag laps. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was pretty brutal, but good to have it finished, and it was a good race.
Thank you so much, Danny, and we look forward to next season. Going to be a good one, and I hope to see you racing. Be nice to see you racing back in Thunder and everything like that. We should hopefully have a good season next year.
Yeah, I should do. This is my final race with MFR tonight, so it's sad to see those guys go, but I've got some sort of plans for next year. I'm not going to announce anything yet, but yeah, I should be racing as long as I can get this internet sort of woes fixed up. It's pretty hopeless in Canberra, but if I can get that fixed up, then yeah, you'll see me racing.
Yeah, hopefully you won't be racing on your phone's internet for a while. That would be disappointing. Just last of all, of course, anyone you'd like to give a shout out for, and thanks and all of that usual stuff.
Yeah, just Performance e-streaming for putting on that. That was pretty cool. I know it was sort of late notice and everything, but I think it worked out well. And yeah, just MFR and all their sponsors and them for the great year. And those guys are really fun to race with. And yeah, I'll miss those guys next year.
Thank you so much, Danny, and have a good Christmas and a New Year.
Yeah, thank you. Catches.
Catches, mate.
Okay, so Tristo, with that, we'll start wrapping up here. So thank you for everybody that has been with us tonight, or will of course watch this race in full in the future. We will be back with you next year. I think February is when our sort of racing season kicks off again, so we'll look forward to seeing you then. Tristo, thoughts on the race?
Look, it's a great night, mate. What more can you ask for? 200 green flag laps, hard racing. You can't really ask for much more than that.
No, we had some fantastic action out on track. Look, 200 green flag laps is a lot, and it is very grueling on the drivers and on the commentators as well. But it was great to see. We saw some great racing, and this is just a sort of a look into the future. For next year, we're going to see some great racing again. So hopefully we'll be seeing that. So for me, Carl Withy, and for Tristo, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you all have a happy New Year and a happy Christmas, and we will see you all next year in February.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Cal.
No worries. Thank you for joining me as well, Tristo.
Catch you guys. Ugh.